am not weak. I am a mother, and my love for Kai is stronger than any darkness you possess. You are not this river. The river is life. It is light, and you cannot hold it hostage forever. Today, I will put an end to your darkness.
The cold winter had enveloped Maple Creek, transforming the small town into a breathtaking painting of snow-covered streets. Everywhere, Christmas lights glowed brightly, adorning every corner as if to ignite hope and warmth in people's hearts. Yet inside the small house at the end of Willow Street, Zuri felt only an unfillable void. Christmas was approaching, but her heart seemed frozen by the pain of losing her beloved son, Kai. The twinkling lights outside the window didn't bring joy. They only deepened the sorrow weighing heavily on her soul. Zuri had once been a strong woman, an inspiration to those around her. But since the day Kai was gone, she felt as though the most important part of her life had been taken away. The pain didn't fade. It was like an open wound that ached day and night. Sometimes Zuri sat by the fireplace, staring into the flickering flames, hoping to find some solace. But all she felt was an endless emptiness. That night, as the snow fell heavily, Zuri sat by the window, her gaze drifting across the grey sky. Suddenly, she heard a strange sound from afar. At first, she thought it was just the wind howling through the branches, but as she listened more closely, her heart seemed to stop. A faint voice echoed through the icy air. "Mum, help me." Zuri leaped to her feet, her heart pounding. It was Kai's voice. There was no mistaking it. Fear mingled with hope surged within her as she dashed out of the house without even grabbing a coat. The icy wind cut through her skin and the snow fell thickly, making the roads slippery, but Zuri didn't care. She ran like someone possessed, following the direction of the voice. When she reached the Crimson River, where the waters had frozen solid under the biting cold, Zuri stopped. In the thick mist, she saw a familiar figure standing there. Her eyes blurred with tears, but she recognized him. It was Kai, her son she thought she had lost forever. Kai stood there, small and fragile, as if a strong gust of wind could carry him away. His eyes held a deep sadness, and he pointed toward the frozen river. "Mum, I'm trapped. Only you can save me. But you must find the snake god. He has the answers." Kai's voice was as light as a breath, yet it carried an intense plea. Zuri stepped forward, wanting to hold her son, but before she could reach him, Kai's figure dissolved into the air like a fleeting mirage. She was left with only a tiny footprint in the snow before everything went silent again. Zuri knelt down, tears streaming down her face. She felt as if she were dreaming, but the footprint was undeniable proof that Kai had been there. He was calling her, needing her help. Her heart filled with an unyielding sense of determination. No matter what it took, she would find Kai. She would find the snake god, the legendary being she had once thought existed only in myths. The next day, Zuri began her journey. Maple Creek was no stranger to mysterious legends, and the story of the snake god had been passed down for generations. It was said that the snake god was an ancient being who lived deep in the forest, where no one dared to venture. He was believed to hold the secrets of the afterlife, but to meet him, one had to endure countless trials and prove their courage and sincerity. Zuri gathered whatever scant information she could. A local villager mentioned that the snake god often appeared near Blackwood Lake on nights of a full moon. An elderly woman recounted how her father had spoken of a hidden path leading to the snake god's cave, obscured by ancient trees and only revealed to those who truly needed it. While many thought Zuri had gone mad with grief, she knew she couldn't give up. Her journey wasn't just about saving Kai. It was about reclaiming hope and finding meaning in life again. Every step she took, every decision she made was a testament to the fierce love a mother has for her child. One night, under the faint glow of the moon, Zuri finally found the path the old woman had described. She stepped into the forest, where ancient trees towered like silent giants, standing guard. The air grew heavy, and it felt as though unseen eyes were watching her every move. Zuri felt fear, but she refused to let it stop her. In her mind, Kai's voice continued to echo, guiding her like a beacon. Finally, After hours of walking, Zuri arrived at a cave hidden behind a waterfall. The sound of the water cascading down was like a somber melody resonating through the air. Zuri took a deep breath and stepped inside. The cave was pitch black, but a faint green light began to glow as she ventured further, and there he was, the snake god, a colossal being with eyes that shone like emeralds and scales that glistened like stars. He gazed at her intently as though he had been waiting for her for a very long time. Before Zuri could speak, the snake god's voice filled the space. "I know why you've come, but to save your son, you must pay a price. Are you willing to sacrifice everything?" Zuri didn't hesitate. "I am willing to do whatever it takes to bring my son back." The snake god smiled, a smile both mysterious and warm. "Prepare yourself. Your journey has only just begun." Those words echoed in Zuri's mind as the snake god led her into a fantastical world where she would face trials beyond imagination. But she didn't waver. She knew that at the end of the road, Kai was waiting for her. Zuri didn't hesitate to seek out Dr. Marcus Cain, a renowned researcher of the mystical, who had previously warned about the mysteries of the Crimson River. The room where he worked in the village's small library was filled with ancient books and maps. Cain, with sharp eyes and a silver beard, was bent over a desk, studying supernatural beings when Zuri arrived. "Dr. Cain, I need your help," Zuri began, her voice trembling but determined. She told him about her strange dream, about Kai, and the whispers of the snake god. Cain looked up, his eyes shining with profound understanding. "The snake god is not our enemy," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "He was once the guardian of the river before the river god seized power. But if you want to find him, you must venture deep into the Black Forest, a place teeming with dangers at every turn." Cain pulled an ancient map from a shelf and carefully spread it out on a cracked wooden table. He pointed to a small spot marked with the symbol of a snake. "This is the sacred snake's lair, where the snake god is said to reside. But Zuri, the path is treacherous. No one who has attempted it before has ever returned." A chill ran down Zuri's spine, yet the image of Kai, standing in the snow, his pleading eyes, fueled her resolve. "I'm not afraid," she replied. "If this is the only way to save my son, I'll do it." Cain studied her, his gaze seeming to pierce into her soul. Silently, he opened an old wooden box on the table and took out a shimmering object, a talisman crafted from snake scales. "Take this," he said, handing it to her. "It will protect you from the dark dangers of the forest, but be cautious. Others are also searching for the snake god, and not everyone has good intentions." Zuri took the talisman, its cool surface radiating a strange energy through her hand. "Others? What do you mean?" she asked, concern evident on her face. Cain paused for a moment, as though weighing how much to reveal. "There are those under the influence of the river god. They will do whatever it takes to stop you or use you for their own gain. You must remain vigilant." Cain's warning only strengthened Zuri's determination. She thanked him and left the library carrying the map, the talisman, and an unwavering sense of purpose. Outside, the snow continued to fall heavily, but within Zuri, a blazing fire of hope burned fiercely. Her journey into the Black Forest began early the next morning. Zuri donned a thick cloak, carrying essential supplies and the talisman safely tucked in her pocket. The path into the forest was dark and foreboding, as though the place had been cut off from the rest of the world. Ancient trees loomed overhead, their interwoven branches creating a canopy that blocked out sunlight. Every step Zuri took was accompanied by the crunch of dry leaves and the sound of wind whistling through the trees, keeping her on edge. She felt an unseen presence, as though hundreds of eyes were watching her from the shadows. Yet the talisman in her pocket seemed to emit a calming energy, helping Zuri stay composed. Along the way, she encountered many challenges. Strange, nightmarish creatures suddenly appeared. One, a beast with glowing red eyes and sharp fangs, leapt from the underbrush. Zuri raised the talisman, and the creature let out a pained howl before retreating. Small streams cut across her path, and as Zuri crossed them, she felt as if the water whispered warnings to her. One night, Zuri set up camp under a large tree to rest. The flickering firelight pushed back the darkness, but it couldn't dispel the unease in her heart. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. Zuri sprang to her feet, gripping the talisman tightly. A tall man emerged from the shadows, his cold eyes fixed on her. "You don't belong here," he said, his voice deep and resonating in the night. "This path is not for the weak." Zuri stood her ground, her gaze unwavering. "I'm not weak. I'm here to find the snake god," the man smirked. "You think the snake god will help you? What you're seeking may cost you everything." Zuri didn't respond, only stared at him intently. She sensed danger from this man, but also realized he didn't intend to harm her immediately. After a moment of silence, he turned and walked away, leaving behind a cryptic warning. "If you truly want to save your son, be prepared to pay the price." Zuri continued her journey, each step heavier than the last, but her determination never wavered. After days of traveling, she finally arrived at the sacred snake's lair. The cave was hidden behind a massive waterfall, its thunderous roar echoing through the forest like an eerie melody. Zuri took a deep breath, summoning all her courage, and stepped through the icy cascade. Inside the cave, a dim light glimmered from natural crystals embedded in the walls, illuminating the vast space. The silence was so profound that Zuri could hear her heartbeat. Then, she saw him. The snake god. He was a colossal figure, majestic and intimidating, with scales that shimmered like stars and eyes as deep and endless as the ocean. He regarded her with a gaze that was both sharp and gentle. Before Zuri could speak, the snake god's voice filled the cavern. "You have come," he said, his tone rich and authoritative. "I know what you seek." Zuri knelt, tears streaming down her face. "Please help me. My son Kai is trapped. You are my last hope." The snake god nodded slowly. "You have a courageous heart, Zuri, but to save your son, you must face the truth and endure final trials. Prepare yourself, for your journey is far from over." His words resonated through the cave as light radiated from his eyes, illuminating the entire space. Zuri knew she had stepped into a world from which there was no turning back, but she also knew she would do whatever it took to bring Kai back. Zuri's journey held countless dangers, but she was ready to confront every challenge to save her son. With every step into the darkness, she carried hope and courage, believing that a mother's love could conquer anything. Zuri carefully and resolutely prepared for her journey. She packed a knife, dried food, a small water bottle, and the protective talisman that Cain had given her. In her heart, the longing for Kai burned like an unquenchable flame. Outside, Christmas was in full splendor, with twinkling lights and the laughter of children echoing throughout the village. But Zuri refused to be distracted. In the still darkness of the winter night, she slipped away quietly, leaving behind the festive sounds. As she entered the forest, the atmosphere changed instantly. The Black Forest lived up to its name: dark, silent, and foreboding. Each step Zuri took was met with falling snow, covering all paths. The wind whistled through the trees, creating rustling sounds like the whispers of unseen spirits. Her heart pounded, but Zuri refused to retreat. The deeper she ventured, the greater her unease grew. The forest's shadows seemed alive, constantly shifting around her. Zuri clutched the talisman in her hand, feeling its cool surface as a reminder that she wasn't alone. Suddenly, a strange noise broke the silence. From between the towering trees, a group of figures emerged, cloaked in darkness. Leading them was a woman with piercing eyes, long hair, and a calculating smile. "Are you also seeking the snake god?" the woman asked, her voice echoing through the air, startling Zuri. "I'm Malika. We're here to claim his power, but if you get in our way—" Malika paused, her eyes flashing with menace. "Don't blame us for being ruthless." Zuri stood firm, keeping her composure. "I'm not after power. I only want to save my son," she said, her tone unwavering. But Malika wasn't interested. She smirked and signaled to her companions. The battle began almost immediately, fierce and unexpected. Malika summoned shadowy creatures from the ground, grotesque figures with sharp claws and glowing red eyes. They charged at Zuri like a violent storm. Zuri stepped back, but at that moment, her talisman began to glow, emitting a powerful energy that repelled the attackers. The creatures shrieked in agony and dissolved into black smoke. Malika stared in disbelief, her eyes blazing with fury. "That talisman! It's from the snake god," she growled. "You have no idea what you're holding." Taking advantage of the chaos, Zuri fled. She pushed deeper into the forest, her steps heavy from the snow and exhaustion. Yet she knew Malika wouldn't give up. She was the kind of person who never accepted defeat, and Zuri felt the pressure of time slipping away. That night, Zuri stopped in a small cave to rest. She lit a small fire, clutching the talisman tightly. Images of Malika and the shadowy creatures haunted her mind. She wondered if she could continue, but each time doubt crept in, the image of Kai appeared, his innocent smile and bright eyes. He was waiting for her. The next morning, Zuri resumed her journey. The black forest grew even darker. There were no birds singing or winds rustling. Everything was eerily silent. She crossed an old wooden bridge where the rushing water below produced strange, unsettling sounds. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, but each time she turned around, all she saw were swaying shadows. As the sun began to set, Zuri spotted a silhouette in the distance. It was an ancient temple, covered in moss and frost. The door stood slightly ajar, and faint light seeped out from within. Zuri's heart raced as she stepped inside. The temple's interior was vast, lined with colossal snake statues on either side of a long pathway. At the center of the temple, Zuri saw a tall figure. He was not an ordinary man, he was the snake god. His skin shimmered like snake scales under starlight, his emerald eyes deep and mesmerizing, and a regal aura surrounded him. The snake god gazed at her, his face expressionless, but his eyes seemed to understand everything. "You have arrived," he said, his voice resonating like a tolling bell. "You carry a courageous heart, but to save your son, you must be willing to pay the price." Zuri knelt, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes. Please save my son." The snake god nodded, his eyes glinting with a mysterious light. "This path is not easy, but you have proven your perseverance. Before I help you, you must face your ultimate test." Zuri stood ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The snake god raised his hand, and the ground beneath her began to tremble. Around her, the scene transformed into a desolate field, shrouded in darkness and filled with distant screams. From the shadows, a familiar figure emerged. It was Kai, but not the Kai she knew. He stood there, his eyes cold, and his voice sounded as though it came from two different people. "Mother, why did you leave me?" Zuri's heart broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I never left you. I'll bring you back." Kai took a step forward, each one causing the ground to quake. He raised his hand, and shadowy phantoms appeared, attacking Zuri. She fought back with all her strength, but with each phantom she defeated, the pain in her heart deepened. The trial seemed endless, but Zuri refused to give up. She screamed, "Kai, I love you. I won't let anything stop me." Her words were like a fire burning through the darkness. Kai stood still, his eyes softening, returning to the boy she knew. The shadows dissipated, and Zuri collapsed, exhausted but relieved. The snake god reappeared, his eyes filled with approval. "You have shown the power of love. Your son will be saved." Zuri smiled through her tears. In that moment, the surroundings brightened, as though the darkness had been banished. She awoke on the snow, cradling Kai in her arms. Though still weak, his eyes sparkled with life once more. Zuri held him close, her heart brimming with happiness and gratitude. They returned to the village, where Christmas celebrations were still underway. But for Zuri, The most important gift had already been restored. Love and hope had triumphed over all darkness. After hours of traversing the perilous jungle, Zuri finally stood before the sacred snake cave, a mystical wonder she had only heard about in ancient legends. The cave was covered with golden vines that shimmered faintly like stars, creating a breathtaking yet enigmatic scene. The air was heavy, carrying an indescribable sense of sanctity. Zuri took a deep breath, summoning all her courage, and stepped inside. Inside the cave, the space was larger than she had imagined. The light from natural crystals on the ceiling reflected throughout, illuminating everything in a magical glow. And there, at the center of the space, the snake god appeared. He was an enormous, majestic being with scales that sparkled like starlight and fiery golden eyes that burned like living flames. His presence was not only awe-inspiring, but also emanated an absolute sense of authority. His deep, resonant voice echoed, as if reaching into the depths of her soul. "Zuri, I know your son," he said. "His soul is imprisoned by the river god, a being who has abandoned his duty to protect the waters and turned himself into the nightmare of this world. But to free him, you must be willing to sacrifice." Zuri clenched her fists, her gaze unwavering. "I am willing to do anything to save my son. But first, tell me, why did the river god choose Kai? Why my son?" The snake god fell silent, his golden eyes glimmering as though lost in ancient memories. After a moment, he began to recount a tale of old, a story entwined with Kai's destiny. Kai is no ordinary child. He carries the bloodline of the ancient gods, the beings who once safeguarded this world from darkness. The river god, who betrayed his sacred duty, seeks to exploit Kai's power to consolidate his dominion and rule all the rivers of the world. Kai's soul is currently held at the source of the Crimson River, where the river god wields his ultimate power. Zuri listened, each word from the snake god piercing her heart. She wasn't merely facing a personal trial sung, but stood at the edge of a larger conflict, a battle that could alter the course of the world. Yet, not for a moment did she allow herself to waver. The snake god continued, his voice lowering as though to emphasize the gravity of his words. "You may save your son, but not through sheer strength. You must confront the river god at the very source of the river. It is where the darkness is strongest, but also where you have your only chance to prevail." As he spoke, the snake god extended his massive form, and a radiant light emanated from his being. When the light subsided, a magnificent necklace appeared in his hands. The necklace was intricately crafted, adorned with the symbol of ultimate power, a snake, coiled around a droplet of water. "This necklace will be the key," the snake god said, handing it to Zuri. "It will allow you to command the waters and face the river god. But remember, you cannot do this alone. The path ahead is fraught with danger, and you will need allies. True strength lies not in this necklace, but in courage and unity." Zuri took the necklace, feeling the immense power radiating from it flow through her hands. She bowed deeply to the snake god, her heart filled with determination. She knew the challenges ahead would not be easy, but her love for her son gave her the strength to press on. She left the cave, her gaze fixed on the horizon, where the source of the Crimson River awaited. Zuri's journey continued, and as the snake god had warned, she could not do it alone. She returned to the village to seek out Dr. Marcus Cain, who had helped her from the beginning. Cain, though weary in appearance, listened intently to Zuri's account with a sharp and serious demeanor. "If the river god truly holds Kai's soul captive, this is a threat far greater than I had imagined," Cain said gravely. "I will go with you, but we will need more help. There is someone, Malika, a former pupil of mine. She is a fierce warrior and could aid us." Zuri nodded, and they set off in search of Malika. Along the way, Cain told Zuri about the river god's past, a once revered being who had succumbed to ambition and envy. Zuri realized that her fight was not just for Kai, but but also to restore balance to the world. They found Malika in a desolate land, locked in battle with a group of shadowy creatures. Zuri was awed by Malika's strength and agility. When the fight was over, Cain approached to persuade her to join them. Initially hesitant, Malika's eyes filled with resolve upon hearing the story of Kai and the river god. If the river god truly poses such a grave threat, I cannot stand idly by, Malika said. Tell me the plan. The three of them, Zuri, Cain, and Malika, joined forces, preparing for the final confrontation. They journeyed toward the source of the Crimson River, a place surrounded by treacherous mountains and dense darkness. Along the way, they faced countless challenges, traps, perilous creatures, and the haunting memories the river brought forth. When they finally reached the source, they saw the river god, a colossal entity with glowing red eyes and a body formed from dark, turbulent water. He laughed coldly at their presence, his voice booming like thunder. You think you can challenge me, Zuri? You are but a mere mortal, powerless against my might. Zuri stepped forward, raising the necklace high. I am not afraid of you, river god. You took my son and cursed this river. Today I will end this and save Kai. The battle erupted violently. The river god summoned massive waves and shadowy minions to attack, but Zuri and her allies held their ground. Malika used her exceptional combat skills to shield Zuri while Cain sought to unravel the river god's power with his arcane knowledge. Holding the necklace, Zuri felt the strength of the surrounding waters surge within her. She realized that victory required more than physical might. She needed to harness her soul and her love. She recalled moments with Kai, his innocent smiles, his bright eyes. Kai, I am here for you, she cried out, her voice resonating through the space. The necklace glowed brilliantly, unleashing a powerful wave of energy that swept through the river god. The monstrous being howled in agony as his form began to dissolve. In his final moments, Zuri saw Kai's spirit appear, shining like a star. He smiled at her, his eyes filled with love. When all was quiet, Zuri collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face. Kai had returned, wrapping his arms around his mother. Cain and Malika watched the scene with deep emotion, knowing they had accomplished the impossible. Zuri's journey had not only saved her son, but also restored hope and love in a world overshadowed by darkness. With the help of her companions, she proved that the greatest strength lay not in power, but in love and courage. Zuri returned to the village in quiet determination, her heart filled with resolve after her encounter with the snake god. Her steps led her to the home of Dr. Marcus Cain, a trusted friend and advisor in her arduous journey. Cain, his sharp eyes tinged with weariness, listened intently to Zuri's account. As she told him about the necklace, the river god and Kai, he couldn't hide his concern but maintained his composure. We need to act immediately, Cain said, his voice stronger than ever. The river god isn't just a personal enemy, he's a threat to the balance of the world. But we cannot do this alone. We need allies. They quickly gathered a small group of the bravest individuals, Zuri's close friends, Amani and Caleb, who didn't hesitate to step into danger to support her. Amani, a skilled archer with sharp eyes and a kind heart. Caleb, a formidable warrior, carried loyalty and determination in his every move. Together with Cain and Zuri, they set out on their journey to the source of the Crimson River, where the river god resided. The journey was far from easy. The path to the source was veiled by dense jungles and treacherous roads. They faced natural traps, strange creatures born of the darkness, and even their inner fears. But each of them carried an unwavering determination. They weren't just fighting for Kai, but for the survival of the world itself. When Zuri's group finally reached the source, the sight before them was overwhelming. The Crimson River was no longer a gentle stream, but had transformed into a monstrous entity. The river god stood amidst the dark, churning waters, his massive form both majestic and terrifying. The waves shaped his muscular figure, and his fiery red eyes burned like the flames of hell, radiating hatred and ambition. His voice thundered like rolling storms. Zuri, Do you think you can defy me? Surrender the necklace, or all of you will die here. Zuri stood tall, her eyes unyielding. I'm not afraid of you, river god. You stole my son. Curse this river. Today I'll end this and save Kai. The river god roared, his bellows shaking the earth. The battle began. He summoned towering black waves and shadowy creatures from the depths of the river, sending them to attack Zuri's group. Amani drew her bow, her arrows flying swiftly and striking their marks, taking down each creature. Caleb, wielding a sharp sword, courageously charged into the fray, shielding Zuri from relentless attacks. The necklace in Zuri's hands began to glow, creating a radiant barrier of light that shielded them from the powerful waves. But the river god was relentless. He gathered his strength, conjuring a massive water cyclone that swept toward them. Dr. Cain, though aged, used all his power to cast a protective spell, but the effort left him gravely injured. Cain collapsed, the protective talisman in his hand glowing one last time. He handed it to Zuri, his eyes filled with trust. Believe in your strength, Zuri. You can win this. You are not just a mother. You are the guardian of this river. Zuri clenched the talisman tightly, tears falling as she saw Cain fall. But there was no time for sorrow. She focused all her energy on the necklace and stepped toward the river god. The light from the necklace grew blindingly bright, causing the river god to howl in agony. You cannot defeat me. I am this river, and this river is me, the river god bellowed. Zuri shouted back, You are not the river. You are only the darkness that has consumed it. This river belongs to life, not destruction. She closed her eyes, concentrating on memories of Kai. His laughter, his smile, the reason she was fighting. The necklace emitted a brilliant burst of light spreading across the space. That light was like a flame that burned away the darkness, repelling the river god's power. The cyclone ceased. The shadowy creatures vanished, and the river god began to dissolve. In his final moments, Zuri saw Kai's spirit appear. The boy stood there, shining like a star, his face radiant with a smile. You saved me, Mom, Kai said, his voice pure and melodic. I'm so proud of you. Zuri ran to him, embracing Kai tightly. Slowly he became real again, and for the first time in days she felt the warmth of his small body. The group stood together, watching the miraculous scene as the light from the necklace spread, purifying the crimson river. The dark, murky waters disappeared, replaced by a clear, sparkling stream that glistened under the sun. Cain, though weak, smiled. Amani and Caleb stood nearby, their hearts filled with pride and relief. They knew they had accomplished what seemed impossible, not just saving Kai, but rescuing the river and the world from a grave threat. They returned to the village, where the people welcomed them as heroes. But for Zuri, the most important thing was keeping her promise. She had fought with all her strength and love, and she had reclaimed Kai, the most precious gift in her life. That Christmas was not just a holiday. It became a symbol of unity, hope, and the power of love to overcome any darkness. Crimson River returned to tranquility after the fierce battle. The dark, murky waters had vanished, replaced by a clear, sparkling stream reflecting the sunlight. The stillness of the surroundings gave no trace of the recent chaos, but Zuri knew deep down that everything had changed forever. She stood at the riverbank, clutching the necklace in her hand, a symbol of hope, but also a heavy burden of responsibility. Before disappearing completely, the river god had left an ominous warning. His voice echoed through the air like rolling thunder. You may seal me, but the darkness within you will always remain. Be careful, Zuri. You have awakened forces far greater than me. Those words etched themselves into her mind, weighing heavily on her heart. Although Kai had been saved, Zuri understood this was not the end. This battle was merely the beginning of a new journey, one she could not foresee. When she returned to Maple Creek with her group, the village atmosphere had completely transformed. Christmas was in full swing with vibrant lights, laughter, and joy filling the air. Villagers welcomed them as heroes, saviors who had brought peace and renewed hope. But amid the cheers and gratitude, Zuri couldn't shake a vague sense of unease creeping into her thoughts. Kai ran toward her, his radiant smile erasing all traces of sorrow. Zuri hugged her son tightly, feeling the warmth she had feared she might never experience again. Yet as she gazed into Kai's bright, innocent eyes, she couldn't stop thinking about the river god's warning. Were they truly safe? Or was this just a calm before an even greater storm? Dr. Marcus Cain, though injured from the battle, remained optimistic. He sat by the fireplace in his home, sipping a cup of hot tea and recounting the tale of the river god to the village children. But in moments when no one was watching, his eyes often drifted toward Zuri, as though he shared her unspoken concern. Cain knew that sealing the river god did not mean the end of all threats. The river god was merely one part of a darkness quietly spreading. In the days that followed, Zuri tried to return to normal life. She spent time with Kai, listening to his laughter as he played with the other children in the village, and joined in preparations for the new year. But every night, as darkness fell, she was haunted by visions of the battle, the screams, the glowing red eyes of the river god. Her dreams were filled with shadows and whispers from unknown sources. One night, as the village slept, Zuri sat by the window, her eyes gazing into the distance toward the river. Snow fell gently, blanketing everything in white. In the stillness of the winter night, she heard an unusual sound. At first, she thought it was just the wind, but as she listened more closely, she realized it was a faint voice, as if calling from far away. Zuri, do you think you have won? Your journey has only just begun. Zuri shivered, turning around to see if anyone was there, but she found no one. She stepped outside, feeling the cold snow beneath her feet. The voice did not return, but the sense of unease lingered. She knew the darkness the river god had spoken of was still out there, waiting for its moment to rise. The next day, Zuri decided to visit Cain. When she recounted what had happened, Cain listened intently, his expression turning grave. Zuri, I fear the river god's warning was not just an idle threat, he said. You've touched upon ancient forces, things this world was never meant to awaken. If what you heard is true, we must prepare for what's to come. Zuri nodded, the weight of his words pressing heavily on her. She didn't know how she could face what lay ahead, but she knew she couldn't turn back. Her love for Kai and her responsibility to the world compelled her to stand firm. In the weeks that followed, Zuri began researching more about the legends surrounding the river and the dark forces the river god had alluded to. She and Cain delved into old records and forgotten texts containing secrets of the supernatural. They discovered that the river god was just one of many ancient entities governing the natural elements, and there were others with powers far beyond human comprehension. One day, while flipping through an old book, Zuri found a page detailing a being called the Eternal Darkness. According to legend, it was an ancient force capable of consuming all light and plunging the world into everlasting shadow. It had once been sealed away by the gods, but if that seal were broken, nowhere in the world would be safe. Cain read the passage with a somber expression. If the river god's warning is connected to this entity, we don't have much time. We need to find a way to stop it before it's too late. A newfound determination surged within Zuri. She didn't know what awaited her, but she knew she had to keep fighting. Christmas in Maple Creek had brought joy and hope, but for Zuri, it was only a temporary respite before a greater storm. As the villagers prepared for the new year, Zuri stood by the Crimson River, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. She whispered to herself, "Are we truly safe? Or is this just the beginning of another journey? No matter what, I won't let the darkness win." The light from the river reflected on her face, a reminder that hope remained, even in the darkest of times. With her love for Kai and the support of her companions, Zuri knew she would never give up. Do you think Zuri and Kai's story is over? Click subscribe to never miss the next chapter from African Tales Best. And don't forget to share this story if you found it captivating.